Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating framework that tries to answer a big question. Why do some brilliant people fail, while others just thrive? It's a model that pits two very different kinds of intelligence against each other to figure out what truly makes someone effective.
I mean, this question really gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? We've all seen this play out. You have incredibly smart people who just can't seem to get ahead, and then you have others who maybe they're not as brilliant on paper, but they just succeed, almost effortlessly. Well, the framework we're digging into today offers a pretty compelling explanation, suggesting that there are actually two very different kinds of smart.
So, this model proposes that our effectiveness, how well we get things done, really comes from two totally distinct types of intelligence, and it gives them these metaphorical names based on parts of the brain, the cerebellum and the cerebrum. Okay, before we go any further, I have to make something crystal clear. We are absolutely not talking about actual neuroscience here. This is a philosophical model, a way of thinking. So when you hear cerebellum and cerebrum, just think of them as labels for different kinds of behaviors and instincts, not the literal squishy parts of your brain. So, what are these two kinds of smarts? Well, on one side, you have cerebellum smart. Think of this as your gut instinct, your street smarts. It's all about practical and social intelligence. It's knowing who to align with, how to act in a group, protecting the nest. Then, on the other side, you've got cerebrum smart. This is your classic book smarts. It's about knowledge, big ideas, and strategy. It's knowing what to do and protecting your own specific contribution, or the egg. And this is where the model gets really fun. Because when you combine these two types of intelligence on a simple grid, high and low for each, you end up with four very, very distinct archetypes of people. And here they are, the four quadrants. You've got the ineffective, who's kind of lacking in both. Then you have the two unbalanced types, the instinctive doer and the flawed genius. And finally, you have the aligned ideal, the person who nails both. So let's kick things off by deep diving into the two most complex archetypes, those unbalanced ones. All right, let's start with the people who are super sharp in one area, but really struggle in the other. And I guarantee you've met people who fit these descriptions to a T. First up, we've got the person who is cerebellum smart but cerebrum dumb. Now, according to this model, this is someone with amazing instincts. They are great at getting things done, at execution, but they often lack that bigger picture wisdom or strategic depth. So if we look at their traits, we see somebody who's experienced and learns incredibly fast, but they can be stubborn and really overvalue their own work. They stick to the rules so rigidly that they can end up alienating the exact people they need to succeed. And here's the real kicker. They are absolute masters at spotting the flaws in everyone else's plan, but they are often completely blind to their own. This quote from the source material just nails their core problem perfectly. They are experts at protecting their own little contribution, the egg, but they totally fail to see how their actions might be damaging the larger group or the bigger goal, the nest. Okay, so now let's flip it. Let's meet the total opposite, the person with those high cerebrum smarts but who is lacking that cerebellum instinct. This is your brilliant strategist who just cannot seem to turn their amazing ideas into reality. This is the classic flawed genius, right? They can map out a spectacular plan, but they're often just too unfocused to actually follow through. They aim for the moon, but then trip over the small, essential details. Their intellect can come across as cold or even cunning, which makes it really hard for people to trust them. And they often just lack the emotional intelligence you need to build a solid team. So, putting them side by side, the contrast is just crystal clear. On one hand, you have the doer. Their strength is action, but they're undermined by their lack of wisdom. On the other hand, you have the thinker, whose brilliant strategies are totally crippled by inaction. The funny thing is, both of these archetypes risk alienating the very people they need to succeed, just in completely different ways. Okay, so let's move on to the two extremes of this whole framework, the archetype that's presented as a kind of cautionary tale, and the one that's held up as the ideal we should all be aiming for. First, let's look at what this framework describes as the least effective person you can be, someone who is lacking in both that practical gut instinct and in intellectual strategy. So according to the model, this combination is basically a recipe for ineffectiveness. This person is constantly creating friction with leadership. They're unfocused. They can't prioritize to save their life. They'll follow any new trend without any real conviction. And because they're so indecisive, they often end up becoming the scapegoat when things go south. And finally, we arrive at the archetype that this whole framework holds up as the ideal. This is the person who successfully and gracefully combines both that cerebellum instinct and that cerebrum intellect. So, what does this ideal person look like? Well, they're someone who is always aligned with the core mission. They're flexible, they focus on the ultimate goal instead of getting bogged down by rigid rules. They are diplomatic because they get social dynamics, and this is huge. They never alienate people who are critical to getting the mission done. It's not just about having a great vision. It's about having the social and practical smarts to navigate all the complexities and make that vision a reality. So, after walking through these four really different archetypes, what's the big takeaway? What is this framework really trying to tell us about how to be effective? The central argument, the main point of this whole model, is that alignment is the foundation of all effectiveness. It's suggesting that cerebellum smarts, that instinct for social harmony, for practical action, for aligning with the right people, that's the bedrock. And without it, even the most brilliant cerebrum smarts will just struggle to make a real impact. And that leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. This framework places a huge premium on social and practical intelligence. It forces us to ask ourselves, what's actually more valuable, a groundbreaking idea or the flawless alignment needed to actually bring that idea to life? It really makes you think, not just about what you know, but how you operate, and maybe which side of your own intelligence needs a little more attention. Thanks for watching.